Here we go. We're at it again. That's right. On the move. Literally on the move here. Still got to work on that one. So the question here today is as follows. Improv. Not improve. Well, you do improve. You do improve with improv, but improvisation. Whew. That's a toughie to say, right? Improv. So the first time I got involved with improv, I didn't even know I got involved with improv, but I got involved with improv. Wasn't on a comedy stage. It was actually at a Toastmaster meeting. Oh, no, you know, it was probably a little bit beyond that. Maybe it was at a business meeting. No. Actually, it was way before that. If I remember correctly, it was in elementary school. I had the honors of playing Christopher Columbus. That's right. We went from class to class, putting on the play of Christopher Columbus on how they discovered America. We could discuss that detail at a later date, but how Christopher Columbus came to America. And somebody had said, "Hark, there's land." That wasn't me. I was Christopher Columbus. I gave them my vest. I remember that. I had this brown fringed vest. How was that improv? Was the story improv? Well, no, we all knew the story, right? But as we told it was improv. We didn't have to learn any lines. As a matter of fact, there was a point made to not learn lines, to learn the story and to tell the story. So we knew the story, we did it. That was improv. That was improvisational. And that was at a rather young age, elementary school. But then we do improv quite a bit. We do it very often. When we take a guess at something, that's kind of improv in and of itself. When we sit down and we're in a class and we're hashing out different ideas, that's improv. Hey, what do you think? You really don't know. You come up with something. Or it goes on, maybe it's your business plan. You don't want to get too improvisational with it. But every time you try something new and different, it is something that is, you're improvising. You're kind of doing you're doing what you can with what you got. And sometimes we need to call for help. I just had one of those situations today. Had to call for help. Can't do it. Get frustrated. Too frustrated. Move it along. Call for help. In a business sense, we're going to do the same thing with our business plans, right? We're going to write out what we think is right and then call for help. Have somebody come in and take a look at it and revise it a little bit. But getting comfortable with improv is really a big deal. Got started really with that, really getting comfortable with speaking, improvisational speaking, actually at Toastmasters. So what we did in Toastmasters, we do something that is called table topics. Table topics is where one person in the club comes with questions. That person will then go to the front of the room or on a Zoom room, whatever. And then they would call on one person after another to come up there and answer some question about something that they may know about, they may not know about. But the fact of the matter is that they cannot prepare because that question is not known to them until that point in time. Makes you think and speak at the same time at a certain rate. But what if you took that whole thing to the next step? And what would you learn from that? Well, let's go back to one of our TEDx speakers. Today, we're going to highlight the TEDx talk from a gentleman that was talking about comedy. His name is Galen Emmanuel. He was delivering this speech at the TEDx in Bellingham. And let's tune in right now and let's see what he had to say here about comedy, about improv comedy, and how that affected him.
Thank you. I want you all to answer this question. If you could increase joy in your life and have a massively positive impact on every single person that you interact with, would you want that? I can show you how to do that. It is by living by the principles of improv. My name is Galen Emanuel, and I am an improviser. Improv completely changed who I am and changed the way that I view the world and the way that I interact with every single person in my life. I know that it can do the same for you. So come with me for a moment as we explore that. Who here has had a conversation where you tell somebody that you are going on vacation and they respond by saying, "Oh, you suck. I hate you." Yes. Who here knows someone in their life that you can think of right now, top of your mind, that if you have an idea, something you're really excited about, really stoked or jazzed, and you go and tell this person about it, they will shoot it down. You know that before you even bring it up to them, they'll say something negative and they'll suck all the excitement out of the idea and shoot it down, no matter how positive it is or any of that stuff. Yes? You all know somebody like that. They're everywhere. I have a story about that. A couple years ago, I was doing a workshop for a company about company culture and improv and using in improv the way that we communicate and how we impact each other as we connect. And this guy, after the workshop, came up to me, Ian, and told me his story. Ian was planning on running a marathon. Never run a marathon before in his life. He was super excited about it. He had friends that were supportive. And he called his dad to tell him about the idea. This is how the conversation went. "Hey, Dad, I'm thinking about running this marathon." And his dad immediately responded with, "Oh, really? Ooh, are you sure? Well, I don't know." And proceeded to tell him about how running is bad for your body and it's miserable and what's the point of a marathon? You can't win anything, etc. So after that conversation, even though Ian was super excited about taking this on, he ended up not running the marathon. Right? Oh. Because his dad's negative response sucked the enthusiasm out of his idea and planted that seed of doubt enough that he didn't do it. So what does any of this have to do with improv? Everything. I've been improvising for about 10 years and teaching improv for about 7 years. Who here has seen a live improv show or watched the television show Whose Line Is It Anyway? Great, you're all familiar. So when improvisers like me perform, we do exactly what you've seen. We take suggestions from the audience, and then everything that we do is made up on the spot, inspired by those suggestions. Improvisers have a brilliant set of principles that they follow to make improv successful. If you take those same principles and use them in your life, it will change the way that you interact with every single person that you come across. The common misconception about improv is that it is about being funny and quick-witted and thinking fast on your feet and being clever. That is false. Improv is about making other people look good, which is so important. I'm going to say that again. Improv is about making other people look good. Everything in improv is centered around this core concept idea of yes and. That is the meat and potatoes of everything improv. And so in improv, everything you do and everything that your partner does is an offer. And you must accept your partner's offer and add more information onto it. Surrounding that core concept idea of yes and, there are a set of tenets, principles that make improv possible that every single improv student knows from day one of improv class. Here they are. Say yes, which means to accept ideas. Make other people look good, which means to support, and instead of trying to make yourself look good, focus on making other people look good and validating them. And to be positive, which means to use positive language, to be optimistic and good-natured. So when you see improv on stage, it looks like magic, but it's just a very simple, brilliant strategy. And here's an example of yes and in action in an improv scene. Two improvisers on stage, one of them says to the other one, "Hey Doc, I'm here for my 2:00 appointment." The other improviser would respond something along the lines of, "Oh great, come on in, have a seat, your brain's over here, let's get started with the transplant." Right? That second improviser said yes and accepted the idea that they were a doctor, that they had an appointment, and then they added more information. "Come on in, it's a brain transplant, let's go." So the opposite of that in improv is what we call a block, which is to say no to an idea. Here's an example of that. Improviser 1, "Hey Doc, I'm here for my 2:00 appointment." Improviser 2, "What are you talking about? I'm not a doctor, I'm just a squid in the ocean here." Right? That is a block. The second improviser said no and rejected the idea of the first improviser. It's a no-no. It is the only thing you cannot do in improv is to say no. Because when you say no, you halt progress and you destroy an idea. But when you say yes, you create forward progress and you open the door to discovery, possibility, and creation. It looks like magic, but it's just a very simple, brilliant strategy. So if you use those same principles of yes and in your life, you will impact positively the way that you connect and deal with every single person that you come in contact with. Let's go back to Ian and the marathon. Ian's dad wasn't purposefully trying to say no and be negative. He was just carelessly giving his opinion, unaware of the impact that it would have on the situation. And what actually, the truth of it is that his dad would have been proud of him if he ran the marathon, right? Ian would have been proud of himself for taking something new on and accomplishing it. So let's take a look at what actually happened. Ian's dad acted the opposite of yes and. Say yes. He didn't. He rejected the idea immediately. Make other people look good. He wasn't trying to make Ian look good. He was trying to make himself look good by coming across as the voice of reason and being knowledgeable about running, right? And being wise and giving advice and being positive. He could have said something positive. Instead, he said a bunch of negative things and destroyed the idea of running it. So if Ian's dad instead was an improviser, dedicated his life to living by the principles of yes and, here's how that conversation could have looked. Hey, Dad, I'm thinking about running a marathon. That's awesome. You're going to be great. The most amazing part of the story is that Ian also told me in that conversation that if he had taken that workshop with me ahead of time, he wouldn't have let it affect him because he could see now what his dad was doing, which is just carelessly saying no and not realizing it. How powerful is that? Right? And once you start to see the world in terms of people saying yes and people saying no and the impact of those two things, everything you view, the way that you see the world completely changes. That's what happened to me. That's the transformation that took place. Completely blew my mind and totally changed who I was as a person. That's why I'm so passionate about talking to companies about creating a yes and culture, and why I'm talking about this right now with you people is that it's so immediate, it's so powerful, and it's available to every single person. All of you right now can start living by yes and. Also, companies can have this too. Here's another story that you probably can relate to if you've ever had a job. A woman told me about a problem in her building where she came around a corner and saw an employee that was walking over a piece of paper that was on the ground. She thought he had dropped it. So when she asked him, his response was, "Oh, no, that's not mine, but I'm not going to pick it up. It's not my job." That situation escalated to this guy ended up calling the maintenance department to have them pick up the trash that was on the ground. The maintenance department shows up to find one single piece of paper on the floor that anybody could have picked up, right? So that guy, frustrated, chews out the guy that called him. Now those employees don't like each other. They go back and tell other employees about that. Now these two departments don't like each other. It escalates. It's ridiculous. But how familiar is that? Right? You've all experienced something equally ridiculous in a work environment. Work environments can be so toxic. But if that company and that employee was dedicated to an intentional yes and culture, he could have just picked up the piece of paper, no problem, right? There was an offer to pick it up. He could have said yes. And by doing so, he would have made the maintenance department look good and supported them. He could have chosen to be positive instead of saying, that's not my job, right? And when you choose to live your life with yes and, I'm telling you, it changes the way that you see everything in life forever. This is the red pill. It is the matrix, people. To prove that this is a choice, I'm going to teach you a fun game that you can play on somebody. The next time you have an interaction with anyone, I want you to choose ahead of time that you're going to use yes and on them without them knowing about it. Right? So you just say yes to everything, make them look good, and be positive. And then feel what it feels like to say yes to this person and watch from an outside perspective how that impacts this person and what their experience is with you. It's unbelievable. If you want to have a better marriage, try that. Get a glimpse of what it would feel like if you made an effort to create a yes and marriage. It's incredible. We're all going to do something right now because I want you to be able to practice this before you go try it on somebody else. So I'm going to say a bunch of things to you, and every person in this room, you're all going to say, "That's awesome," to everything that I say. Yeah. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. I'm thinking about running a marathon. I'm going on vacation next month. I want to make dinner with you. I'm sad. Rude. Now that you know how to wield this power, you must wield it responsibly. Remember the guy that we talked about in the very beginning that you could think of at the top of your mind that says no to everything? Do not be that person. Don't be the person that opens your mouth and says something negative. Instead, be the person who thinks of something positive to say, who says yes and accepts ideas, right? Think of a reason why something can work instead of immediately why it won't work. Lift people up around you and do it every single time you open your mouth. You can. You absolutely can. And this is not about you saying yes to everything in your life or being fake or pretending that you're happy all the time. That's not possible. This is real life. What yes and is about you being conscious and aware and taking responsibility for the impact that you have on every single person that you interact with. There is a way to say yes to somebody to make them feel like crap. Fine, I'll go on a hike with you. Technically, that's a yes. And there's a yes and way to say no to somebody that makes them feel like, I heard what you said, I considered you, you're important to me, right? I'd love to hang out with you and spend some time. I'm not excited about going on a hike, but maybe we can do something else. It is possible for you to say yes to a person and no to an idea, and that's important. Consciously, please choose to live your life by a yes and principle. You will increase joy in your life. You'll have a massively positive impact on every single person that you interact with. You'll have a better marriage. You'll have better friendships. You'll have a better working environment. It's simple and it's worth it. I promise you. Choose yes and. Say yes, make other people look good, and be positive. Thank you.
There we go. Yes, and the microphone on, or yes, but the microphone's not on. What do you do? So, what do you do? How do you approach this whole thing? Where is it that you impact others? Oh, it's so easy to screw up a conversation by going, yeah, but I can't do it, or yeah, but whatever. Oh my God, I do that. I do that. Matter of fact, I just did that actually, not in the last 20 minutes, but how many times do you think I've kind of considered that one? Right? Got a problem with something? Yes, you tried it. You can't do it. It's like, yes, and I could do it. Yes, and it would be a good idea to bring somebody else in. Even starting this program, I was a minute or two late here over here at 1 o'clock. So let's take a look at that. Just that 1 o'clock thing, right? Oh, I want to do 1 o'clock. And it's late. So what's the conversation that takes place? Yes, but it's late and you missed the starting time. Oh, it's easy to not do it. Yes, and what the heck? Just keep going on. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Yes, and you're a few minutes late. What a difference between those two conversations. Is it easy to do? Sure. It's easy to say. Is it easy to live by? There comes the emotions. There comes the emotions. So then that, I think, leads us into the other side of it, is one, having the right attitude, but it's also going into something with the right mindset, knowing that maybe something's going to be a challenge, as opposed to going into something and thinking, man, I could just finish this thing in 2 minutes and get back to what I was doing. What a difference that is. What a difference that is. Hey, yeah, maybe that is a little bit of self-coaching over here. I should put a mirror up, on this one. But if I go into something knowing it's going to be a challenge, it's one thing. If I go into something knowing that failure is a possibility, man, the first time I got on a comedy stage, I knew failure was a possibility. But I was ready to deal with that. Other times, go into something thinking that I could do this, and not just seeing the completion of it without understanding that sometimes it might not work out. Ah, I know for me personally, the frustration rises, goes right up the scale, right up the scale. That's all controllable by me. So the question for you is, how do you do that? Do you take his attitude here, that yes and attitude? Yes, and always looking at whatever the positive aspect of it. Yes, and always trying to see the possibilities. Yes, and always trying to make the other person look good, feel good, as opposed to yes, but where you're agreeing with them, but then pointing out the negatives. Look, there's a time and place for negatives. If it's an original thought, why not stay on the positives? We used to sit down with those lists. Remember why I should do something, why I shouldn't do something. What's the benefits of working at a company? What's the negatives of working at a company? We made those lists. If you start off with the negative side of it, oh, you're probably not going to get too far on the positive side of it. If you start off on the positive side of it, then I think you got a much better shot at finding out what those true hurdles are going to be. If you take a look at something and realize that, well, I got to commuting into the city, it's an hour each way. That's again, let's lay out the positives first. Working for this company would be great. Working for this company would be new opportunities. Working for this company would be exciting. Working for the company's got good attitude in there. Or working for the company would be something new, etc. Then you go on to the negative side of it. I really don't understand the product altogether too well. The what if I fail kind of thing. I got to commute for an hour, and that kind of stuff. And then you keep going back and analyze this and really take a look at it and say, well, wait a second. I really don't know the product altogether too well. I know that there is a learning curve with everything. Every new project we take on, there's a learning curve with it. And I got that hour on the train. Then it's like, well, wait a second. If we take a look at that hour on the train or an hour in the car, could be either way. Is that a positive or a negative? Well, sometimes that hour is our only alone time, so that might be a good time to just be alone, whatever, read a book, do anything. Sometimes that hour on the train or in the car, because this could be done either way, except with the alone time thing, is turn it into that automobile university, which somebody had come up with that term, which I think is great. In other words, I think they were talking about listening to books on tape at the time, which is now CDs, which is now podcasts. But however it is, if you take in information from an audio only, if you're driving, it's audio only. If you're not driving, you're in the car. Now you got audio and visual. But now all of a sudden, you could take that hour each way. So it's 2 hours a day that you could put towards studying something. That's now a plus, that commute, isn't it? So you're either got free time or you've got learning time. And now you would become better prepared for whatever that job is, because now you could put that learning time into learning more about the company, learning more about the product, learning more about sales or structure, whatever it is, that project that you're taking on. Start with the positives and then list out all those negatives, and then take a look at some of those negatives, and are they really negative, or can they be flipped around, revamped, go yes and I do have to sit in a train or in a car for an hour, but I could use that time for something else. What's funny? Maybe it's not funny. Maybe it is funny. But one of the comments that have been made over the past, dare I say, close to 2 years now, but about this working from home thing, for those of us that are able to work from home, those of us that are lucky enough to be able to work from home, then all of a sudden, what did you lose by working from home? Oh, well, I didn't lose anything because I don't have to drive. I don't have to commute. I'm home more frequently. That's good. What were some of the negatives of working from home? Well, it's easy to get distracted because it's here. A lot of folks put on 5 pounds, 10 pounds. I'll stop at that number, because all of a sudden your refrigerator is a lot closer. Your oven, your cooktop is all here. So you can cook more. And if you're cooking and you're having a conference call and you're cooking, you can do that. All of a sudden, those kind of distractions came up a little bit more. And you want to know what else that came up too? That commute. You don't have the commute anymore. That's a positive, isn't it? Or is it? And this is again in how we look at things. It might not be as much of a positive as you might think, because what if you were studying? Now all of a sudden you've got all these distractions and stuff like that. Now what do? What do you do? What about exercise? Oh, the gyms were closed. Can't exercise. Really? Or can you figure out a new way to exercise? Yes, and now I can walk around the neighborhood. I wound up meeting neighbors I never knew I had. Well, everybody's out walking. That was good. Some of the times too, I'd go out and when I had some conference call I was on or something like that, put in the earbuds, got the phone with me, and I go for a walk. I was only listening. I wasn't really participating. I wasn't contributing. I was just more listening, studying, all the rest of that stuff, books on tape, well, CDs, podcasts. All of a sudden that stuff is there. It really is all about attitude all the time. Going into something with that approach, a lot to be said for that. So let's go. Let's make this real current here. End of the year, isn't it not? Which means it's the beginning of the year, which means we got New Year's resolutions, which means all kinds of meetings that are kind of come up about business plans, how to write a business plan. Look at the Miller Business Center, Stony Brook Small Business Development Center, and the other ones. I think Farmingdale Small Business Development Center is doing something about those business plans. You're going to write out your business plan, especially if it's the first time. You're going to think, oh man, this is perfect. And you're going to show it to somebody. Understand where that person's coming from. So if that person is coming to you from a teaching standpoint, a very analytical standpoint, they may not be looking at it with that yes and attitude. You show that same business plan to a friend, to your spouse, your motivational partner, you're going to have the yes and. You show that to somebody who's there in order to improve upon your business plan, to point out the weaknesses so you can deal with it. They're going to not be coming to you with the yes and attitude. They won't be coming to you with that improv attitude. It'll be different. So understand where people are coming from and where you're asking them to come from. Hey, that guy that was going to run the marathon for the first time, he wasn't looking for his father to talk him out of it. He was looking for his father to tell him to do it. Maybe a conversation or two later, you really want to protect your body. It's tough on the knees. Go through training and learn what you need to do. That's still a positive, realistically positive, realistically optimistic, as we like to put it. But that first conversation with a friend or whatever, nice to have it. But if you're going to speak to a coach and you're going to have them review something, understand where they're coming from. So it won't be that big positive that's out there. But then again, you get through the second or third conversation, maybe then they're going to come to you with that yes and I love the way that you've adapted these different things. Yes, and I love the way that you've taken into account the different things that we've discussed. Hey, that becomes a win, doesn't it? That is a great way to start the year. That is something that you want to really get excited about, and you will, because it is your project. It's something that you've done. It's something that you've grown with, something that you've developed with just the assistance of other people. And that's a great thing. That is something that you will speak well, speak often about frequently, and without a doubt, help you to live inspired.